The Justice Department is putting police reform agreements with troubled law enforcement agencies across the country on hold. Attorney General Jeff Sessions has ordered a review of the consent decree agreements reached during the Obama administration with several police departments, including Baltimore, Chicago, and Cleveland. Those agreements pave the way for sweeping police reforms. Sessions says the review is needed to make sure the agreements don't hinder law enforcement agencies from fighting crime. In a motion filed with federal court regarding Baltimore's police department, DOJ attorneys said, and I'm quoting here, the Attorney General and the new leadership in the department are actively developing strategies to support the thousands of law enforcement agencies across the country to prevent crime and protect the public. But Baltimore's police commissioner strongly disagrees with the DOJ's move.
But I think if you look at some of the more thoughtful godfathers of our profession, the Chuck Ramseys, the Bill Brattons of the world, and you ask them about mandated, compelled reform, and does that ultimately make your organization better, I think you'll get resounding yeses out of people who have lived through it and come out the other side of it.
Here to help sort all of this out and what it means to us is Kristen Clarke, President and Executive Director of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law. Kristen, I don't even know where to begin. What does this say to the American public, particularly to African Americans across the country, that the Attorney General has decided to review all of these things that were just put into effect?
Some of the most important work that was carried out by the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division over the last 8 years was this work to promote policing reform among some of the most broken police departments across our country. It's shameful that the Attorney General is taking this step less than 2 months into his tenure to undo some of the critical work that Loretta Lynch and Eric Holder have put in place to help get these police departments on a better path. We all want safe communities, but the reality is that these police departments have a long history of trumping people's constitutional rights. The Baltimore Police Department, it's all set forth in a 163-page report, engaged in unconstitutional stops of African Americans. There are racial disparities that riddled the work of the department at every stage. The mayor, law enforcement, and the community are all on board with the changes that are set forth in the very consent decree that Attorney General Jeff Sessions now wants to turn his back on. He is now the obstacle to reform, and it's shameful.
We saw it going, when he was testifying prior to his confirmation proceedings, he said that there was a belief that they needed to go back and at least look at consent decrees, that maybe they're a good thing, but maybe they're not, but sort of indicated a while ago that the Trump administration was going to come in and just obliterate them. And, one of the things that they're saying now is that they just want to look at them. But I guess my question to you is, what is the message that they are sending to people who feel aggrieved in these cities, like Freddie Gray in Baltimore or people in Ferguson across the country, that they need to look at these and make sure that we are protecting the morale of police officers? Like, what does it say to the African American community that has suffered so much loss?
This administration is all about law and order. We've seen that since day one. Executive orders have been issued where they are pushing law enforcement and prosecutors to be more aggressive on fighting crime, all at the expense of people's constitutional and civil rights. I am deeply disturbed about the direction that this new administration is going. The reality is that there are 18,000 law enforcement agencies across their country, occupied by many officers who do their job faithfully. Yeah. But the reality is that in places like Baltimore and Chicago and New Orleans, there's a lot of work that needs to be done to uproot that systemic bias that infects the system. And these consent decrees are vehicles to help put those police departments on a path to reform, and that our Attorney General would stand in the way and be an obstacle to progress is shameful. We saw the writing on the wall during his confirmation process. He showed us who he was before. We're seeing it now. I'm just astounded that he's going for the jugular less than 2 months in.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and it's shameful because I want to bring the panel in that we remember we had African Americans who testified on behalf of Jeff Sessions and said, you know, he doesn't have a racist bone in his body. But you know, with that, let me introduce the panel. Joining the panel today, Dr. Greg Carr, chairman of the Department of Afro-American Studies at my alma mater, Howard University, and Spencer Overton, my dear friend, president of the Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies, and a man who needs no introduction, Mr. Raynard Jackson, GOP strategist. Gentlemen,
yeah.
I mean, where do we begin? Spencer?
You talked about the message. What is the message? And I'm afraid that a message is that Black lives don't matter here. This is the same kind of states' rights piece put forward when we saw the fall of an important part of the Voting Rights Act, right, in terms of the federal government not having oversight. Basically, that's the message that's going on here. Hey, the federal government is stepping back and not ensuring that Black lives and Black rights will be protected. And a big problem of this is this patronage piece, right? We saw the environmental rollback, which was kind of patronage to kind of the West Virginia coal miners here. Here we've got patronage going on in terms of police unions, right? These cities don't want a rollback. Catherine Pugh, the mayor of Baltimore, right? She said, hey, we don't want to reconsider this. We want reform. Reform allows police officers to be safer. It allows communities to be safer. She doesn't want this. These police unions want a reconsideration, and they want to slow down reform.
I want to ask you to play devil's advocate, Raynard, but first, you know, the agreements that were signed, for example, in Baltimore, there is nothing in any way whatsoever, you know, egregious about what the police officers agreed to do. They basically said, we're going to agree to try to work with the community to find ways to use nonviolence in our interactions with the community. But Raynard, if we're going to play devil's advocate, which is the role I'm going to ask you to play, is there anything positive that we can say about why the Department of Justice would decide to do this?
Well, number one, I worked for Jeff Sessions on his first Senate campaign in Alabama in '96, so I can speak from personal experience.
That's for
But isn't it amazing that, especially Kristen, you as an attorney should know better. He is reviewing these consent decrees. So he's not even made a finding yet. So you all are going around the country saying the house is on fire. He hasn't even begun his review yet.
But Raynard, if you're going to review something that consent decrees, many of which have been long-standing across the country, a few of which were laid out at the end of the Obama administration, if you're going to review them, isn't he just setting the groundwork to roll them back?
Well, I don't know. It depends on what he finds, number one. But isn't it amazing that Baltimore, and I'm from Ferguson, and I know we're going to talk about that. Isn't it amazing you all in Baltimore and in Ferguson needed the Justice Department to come in to say you all were racist? Baltimore had a Black mayor, a Black prosecutor, a Black police chief, and you need the Attorney General to come in and state the obvious? Really?
And a white Republican governor
who has nothing to do with
in the state of Maryland, who even now is asking that the state of Maryland not be declared a sanctuary state, and is blaming it on 2 youth from Guatemala who have engaged in a horrible act, raping 2 young women at a high school in Rockville, Maryland, but is basically saying or implying that because they're from Guatemala, that is why they are rapists, and that's why the state of Maryland should not become a state.
Well, I don't make a connection to that, but the point being, if you're in the country illegally, you got to go.
Did you read the letter that Sessions wrote? This is attorney, the one he just released, the one we're talking about right now.
Did he talk about civil rights?
No,
he's talking about Black lives.
He's talking about law and order. This is a federal wink to state and local authorities.
You're
Wait a minute, hold on, brother.
Leap.
Hold on, because guess what? All these black folks right here, the police stopped you, brother. Advocating for Jeff Sessions ain't gonna save you. When you read the letter, it's very clear. He made a signal. Attorney Clarke has said it. He is signaling to state and local authorities, I'm backing up. And if you read it very closely, what you see is they're gonna look at grants. Well, are we gonna see some of this military stuff rolled out to these local police departments like the ones
that started under Bill Clinton?
Let me say this. Look at Camden. In Camden, the police chief there, a white man, has approached crime and policing very differently now. Nonviolence, he's saying come in and de-escalate, and what you've seen is a drop in Camden. This is a white police officer, and Spencer is right. The Baltimore Police Union chief is backing this. Jeff Sessions just sent a major league wink to his friends out there, his racist, oppressive friends.
Your politics won't save you, brother.
Your politics won't save you. Your skin color is going to get you in trouble.
A peaceful protest turned deadly. 37-year-old black man was shot and killed by Baton Rouge police. His hands are in the air, and you still get shot by the cops.
Oh my God, please don't tell me he's dead.
We're not going to let hate define us.
Race is a big part of this.
If truly all lives matter, then all lives need to matter equally.
What we require is action. What we require is accountability. We understand that black lives do matter, and we will keep focused on this issue.
NewsOne Now, every weekday morning at 7 on TV1.